The chatter of the atrium was far more pleasant than that of the outside city. Men and women in fine clothes sauntered by without rush or stress. Youths grouped in the corners and by the pillars, discussing a myriad of learned topics that Gdansk wouldn't have imagined those of similar age in Kapasitoria understanding, let alone debating. This was most definitely the Academy, the most prestigious house of learning in the known world. The arduous journey here took its toll, and she had solely focused on making it here, to this Academy. Her arrival concluded that chapter, and the next was about to begin. Her gaze swept across the space, and to her surprise, she saw a familiar figure. He walked towards her.
"Hello there, miss. Made it then, I see,"
said the gentleman who had directed her to the charge. How he had got there before her, she couldn't fathom. But it was a relief to be rescued from the isolation she had felt upon her entry. The man took in her confusion and breathed in through his nose before he spoke. It made a soft squeak upon inhaling.
"The name's Nice, miss. And before you ask, I know who you are and why you're here."
Gdansk's face contorted to hide her anxiety. An age passed before the man spoke again.
"You are Miss Gdansk, Miss Split's daughter, hailing from Kapasitoria, though you are awfully tall for one of those backwater lots. You're here to join the team here at the EMA. So, finally, I welcome you to our cohort. I will now take you on a brief tour of our facilities, culminating in a visit to their majestic influence themselves, Watlia's office."
His voice wavered at the end of his speech, though whether it was due to pride or something else, Gdansk could not tell. Nevertheless, Gdansk forced her breathing to calm, and her shoulders fell from their raised position. That's right, Mr. Nice, was it? I'm here to fulfill my dream of drowning in the world of academia, which I've held since my early days, when I spent most of the sun's journey in the library, becoming learned.
"More often than not, I would return home long after it had set, sir,"
Gdansk said, eager to talk to people who were around her similar mental stature for the first time since she could remember.
Curious. I was unaware of a library in Kapasitoria. Is it new? It cannot be very old considering your age. 23, I would surmise? Or could it be that perhaps you were not originally from Kapasitoria?"
Nice said, and looked at her with a knowing look. Gdansk's breathing quickened again. She had given too much away, and now had to think on her feet so as not to be revealed. She took a moment, and then finally said, I'm not from Kapasitoria, no. Originally, we lived in Sokatrulia, but moved there when I began school."
"Aha! Very good. Happy days,"
Nice said, while clapping his hands together in one soft motion.
"Sokatrulians are some of the best of Fluxia. I knew I offered the right person the job,"
he continued, as jovial as ever. Gdansk looked at him in the new light. She had thought Nice to be a simple worker or guide within the EMAs, but it appeared that he was closer in proximity to the top brass than she had given him credit. A saxophone, perhaps? Not qualifiably brass, even if it looked similar. Yes, Gdansk decided in her mind that his monarch would be the saxophone, though she would never say such a thing to him directly, even if she had the opportunity.
"Right, well then, let's be off,"
Nice said, gesturing to her. She began to walk in step with him, following him through the atrium of the Academy. They walked through the naturally lit space, and Gdansk saw the students of all creeds who built up its population. Some she recognized immediately as Fluxians, some she partially recognized as dinosaurs, and others she did not understand. Black masses of flesh and bone which swelled and ebbed into different forms, sometimes a humanoid male, others a quadrupedal mammal, and finally some description of fish. This she found very strange indeed, but it was far from the largest oddity this space offered. Near the end of their walk, before they moved on to the next area of the Academy, Gdansk saw in a far corner an extremely tall figure blending in with the wall. She struggled to look at them, but no matter the angle in which she cast her gaze, the glare of the sun still prevented her from making out any meaningful details. The figure remained forever a silhouette in Gdansk's mind, but a warmth within her gave her confidence that she'd just seen another of her people. Another Hydronian, here in Fluxia, in Simmerstat, in the Academy. She almost made to investigate, when Nice's beckoning struck her and she hastily drew her gaze back on track. She walked over to where he was facing a blank wall.
We have our own special transportation system here in the EMAs. One of your lot made it, actually. The circuit, it's called.
Nice pointed to the ceiling as he spoke. Gdansk looked up and saw a piece of metal jutting from the wall. Wires spewing from it in every direction, running paths along the ceiling, round corners, and to distances she could not see, though she failed to see how it was a transportation system. Nice caught on to her confusion. He peered around at the students like a heat-seeking missile looking for its target. A dinosaur with a humanoid body and a tall neck on its shoulders was the unlucky target.
Hey, you! You're new, right? Get over here!
Nice shouted, startling the student who was carrying a cumbersome number of books. He turned and walked towards them, his head bobbing with every step along his long reptilian neck.
Have you used the circuit yet, lad?
Nice asked him, a whimsical look in his eye. No, not yet. The others introduced me to it, but I've yet to try it myself, sir. As you will surmise, this type of travel is not common for my people, and my Zanshu, they prohibit it here, so I must walk. Nice patted the reptilian's shoulder with his hand, and spoke with a wide grin.
Well, first time for everything, ain't there, lad?
He said, before snatching the books from the student and tossing them at the wall. The dinosaur cried and ran after them, its head bobbing along, and Gdansk looked away, expecting to hear the creature's body hitting an unforgiving wall at high speed. When nothing happened, Gdansk looked back at the wall, and to her amazement, the student was no longer there. Instead, a small, glowing orb floated up towards the metal protruding from the wall, pulsating as it did so. It struck the metal, and the orb flung itself down a wire to a location that Gdansk could not comprehend. Nice laughed aloud as the orb travelled further and further away from the wires. "Where did you send him?" Gdansk asked, interrupting Nice's laughing fit.
Hell if I know. Just hope it's not somewhere prohibited, eh? He replied, speaking and then starting his laughter once again. Anyway, that's how we'll continue the tour. Ready to see the electromagnetic users practicing their form? Flip switches, we call them here.
Gdansk couldn't even answer before Nice placed a firm hand on her back and pushed them both into the wall. She only had a brief moment to gape wide-eyed at the approaching barrier, before the world went blue.